Okay guys, so I just wanted to come to you today in this video and share a story with you that comes out of Luke chapter 10. And this is the parable of the Good Samaritan. Now this is a story that Jesus taught while he was here on the earth, and is probably one of his more popular ones. This is one that people would probably like to talk about. We see it in children's books and different things like that. It's definitely one that gets a little bit more attention. But today I want to bring it to you and point out a few things that stuck out to me as I was reading it just a few days ago, and hopefully it'll help you out. It starts off in Luke chapter 10, verse 30. It says, "And Jesus answering said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment, and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him, and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him, and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, Take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more when I come again, I will repay thee." Now, before we go any further, I want to break this down right here and point out the different types of people that we see mentioned here in this story. As it starts off, he says that a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves. Now, let me tell you something. I believe that that certain man represents all of the lost people here in the world today. That certain man represents all of the lost people that you come in contact with on a daily basis. They have fallen into the hands of the enemy, the devil, the evil one. And he has put things like drugs and alcohol, pornography, homosexuality, false religions, abortion, all these different things he's placed at their fingertips. And these people they take the bait, and so they have fallen down into this trap that was set before them. They've fallen into this pit from the devil himself. And now, here they are, beat up, busted and disgusted, just like this man, stripped of his raiment, wounded, and left for dead. That's the way a lot of these people are today. They've fallen into this ditch, and unless they change their ways, unless something happens to where they get a hold of the truth, they're going to die in that state that they're in. And then they will be separated from God for all of eternity. So the first things first, we need to go ahead and understand that this first man represents the lost and dying world that we live in today. So what do we do about it? How do we fix this problem that we're in with all of these lost souls who need to turn to Jesus Christ? Should we be like the first man mentioned? It says that a certain priest came that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Is that how Christians should respond to the lost people out there in the world today? This certain priest represents all of those so-called Christians that have that knowledge. They say that they know God. They go to church every Sunday. They're a part of the Bible studies. They're a part of certain activities. But when they see a need, they turn and go the other way. When there's when action must be taken, they're nowhere to be found. Is that the way that you believe Christians ought to respond? When we go out here and we see all of the lost people, we see them in our daily life, we see them in our businesses, we see them when we go out and preach. This is what I run into. When we see all of these lost people, all of these people that we come in contact with, how should we respond? Should we be like this man who, when he saw a person in need, knew what he should do, but he turned around and went the other way. He passed on by him. He acted as if he didn't see him. Is that how we should react? Maybe it should be like the second man. It says that a Levite, when he was at that place, he came and looked on him. Now get that. He came to the man and looked on him. That'd be like me walking down one side of the street and I see this guy's over here on the opposite end in the ditch, and I cross the street to go look at his body, to go look at him, and then I get back on my path and keep going my way. Well, who does that represent in America today? I believe that this right here, this Levite, represents all of the people who go around and they talk a big talk. They talk about how bad the world is. They talk about all of the corrupt things that are going on. They talk about how evil everything is, yet they do nothing about it. Now think about that, guys. This is important to understand because there could be some of you out there who watch this video who fall into those two categories. You know what you should do, but you don't do it. Or you sit around and you talk about it. You take all these things in and you think, man, this will be a good story. You talk about how bad everything is, how the world's coming to an end, how all of these terrible things are taking place, but you do nothing to bring people in. You see a need and you pass by. You see everything that's going on, you talk about it, but in all reality, you do nothing about it. Think about that. Are you that certain priest? Are you that certain Levite today? You know what you should be doing, but you don't do it. You talk about all of the negative, but you take no action to stand against it, to show opposition to it. Think about it. What are we called to do as Christians? How are we supposed to respond when we see our neighbor in the ditch? He's fallen into that trap. He's living in sin and he needs to be brought out. How do we respond to that? As we go on, it says, but a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. Now, first thing I want you to understand about the deal where he says it was a Samaritan is that this is what you would not expect in this type of situation here. We see that when Jesus asked the woman at the well for a drink of water, there was a little bit of conflict there at the beginning because this woman said, why are you asking me for a drink? You know, you're a Jew, I'm a Samaritan. You see what I'm saying? Because the Samaritans and the Jews, they didn't have any dealings with each other. They were at odds with each other. So for a Samaritan to come help a man coming from the city of Jerusalem is somewhat of a big deal. This is a little abnormal. So what's the deal here? What moved this Samaritan to do what he did? The deal is that he had compassion on him. He was, there was some humanity there. He saw the need and he put all the differences aside and he said, I'm willing to go where he is and I'm willing to help him out. I'm willing to pull him out of that ditch to save his life. This right here is how we are called to react as Christians when we see a need in the world. Okay? Now, what I want you to understand that about this Samaritan man is that it separates him. What you see here is what separates him from the Levite and from the priest. In verse 34, it says, he went to him. Okay, the certain priest, he passed by. He saw him. He didn't go near him. He just kept moving, act like he didn't see it. No big deal. But the Samaritan went to him, and he bound up his wounds. Okay, he's working on him. He's pouring in the oil and wine. He's cleaning the wounds. He sets him on his own beast. He brings him to an end. He takes care of him. You see, there's action involved. He didn't just look at this man and talk about the poor state that he's in, but he took action. He gets his hands dirty. You understand? This is how we are supposed to react. When we see something going on, when we see a need in the world, when we see people who are in that ditch, okay, they've fallen into sin, they've fallen into the hands of the enemy, they're torn apart. This is how Christians react. We don't let them go. We don't know what we should do and turn away, turn a blind eye and a deaf ear, but we take action. Now, one thing I want you to understand is that when you choose to take action, this is why a lot of people turn away. This is why a lot of people choose not to get involved. This is why a lot of Christians, they would rather just go to church on Sunday morning, Wednesday night, attend a Bible study every so often, and that's it. This is why most would do that. If you are going to take the route that the Samaritan man took, if you are going to go that route, if you are going to take action, if you're going to get involved, it is going to require something of you. You understand? Ministry, evangelism, going out and sharing your faith to people, crying out, lifting up your voice, it requires something of you. Okay? Like what we see here for this Samaritan man, it took work. You understand? It took work. He bound up his wounds. He's working on this man's wounds. He's cleaning him up. He's wrapping him up. It takes work. You can't be a lazy Christian if you're going to take this route. It takes work. This is why the Bible says you have to count the cost. You have to understand what you're getting into. But then he goes on and he says he set him on his own beast. So it takes sacrifice. This Samaritan man was willing to sacrifice, the ride that he could have taken. He was willing to walk and let this man ride. So he's working. He's making sacrifices here. He brings him to an end. He's giving up his money here. He's spending money on this guy. He's investing. You see what I'm saying? But then it goes on to say in the 35th verse, he says, "And whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee." So over all of these things that I just mentioned, it requires work, it requires sacrifice. The biggest key right here is it requires commitment. This man looked and said that I'll come back, and whatever, the extra money that you spend to help this guy out, I'll repay you. I'll give you the money back for it. He's committed to helping this man out. It requires commitment in your life. And that's why most people would rather be like the priest. They would rather be like the Levite. They would rather talk about the problems in the world but not do anything about it. Is because if you're going to actually do something, if you're going to go out and share your faith, you have to be committed. Okay? You have to make a sacrifice. There has to be something required of you. It's not easy going out there and taking the ridicule that we have to take for preaching the gospel. It's not easy having people turn against you. But this right here is what we are called to do. And the reason why I know that is because we'll finish in these last two verses. In verse 36 and verse 37, he says, "Which now of these three thinkest thou was neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves?" Now think about that. He said, which one of the three that we have talked about here today, which one do you think was the neighbor to the guy who fell among the thieves? Which one is the one that was doing what was right? And it says, "And he said, he that showed mercy on him. Then said Jesus unto him, Go and do thou likewise." So when he asked the people, he said, hey, now which one do you think is the one that was the neighbor? Okay? Because when we read the verses prior to this man said that we are supposed to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. You understand? He says this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to love God with everything that we are. But then we're to love our neighbor as ourselves. So then Jesus looks and says, well, who is the one being the neighbor? Who is the one going to this man? It was the one that showed mercy on him. It was the one that was willing to sacrifice. The one that was willing to commit. The one that was willing to do the work. Not talk about it, not ignore it, but the one who is willing to do the work. And that's when Jesus said, I want you to go and I want you to do the same thing. Go and do likewise. I tell you, people, when we look at the world today, we see that America is in a wreck. We see that the world is in chaos. We see all of the things happening around us. Hey, step outside and look at your surroundings and you see all of the negative that takes place. What are we as Christians supposed to do? Are we supposed to sit back and just say, well, we're waiting on the Lord. We're waiting on the Lord. You know, we're just waiting for Him to return. And we just kind of sit here and just, we don't really know what to do. No, that's not the way a Christian is supposed to act. A Christian should not be content with that lifestyle. A Christian should not be happy living the lifestyle of that certain priest or that certain Levite. A Christian feels that call, and that Samaritan, he sees the world. And just as the Bible talks about, when Jesus saw the multitudes, it says he was moved with compassion on them because he saw that they were sheep without a shepherd. Now think about that. They were lost people, and he was moved with compassion on them, and he said he was going to show them mercy. He was going to stretch forth the hand. He was going to do everything he could to try to help them. He gave his life for the people. Jesus Christ demonstrated what we should be doing. He sacrificed himself. He was committed to the call. He said, not my will, but your will be done. You understand? That's the way a Christian ought to live. We should take that role of that Good Samaritan. We need to be committed to the call that God has placed on our life to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature and make disciples among men. We should be committed to the call of seeing those people in the ditch that have fallen because of homosexuality, because of abortion, because of false religions, drugs, alcohol, pornography, all these different things. We should see those people and do what we can to help them. Because reality is that if these people do not get a hold of Jesus Christ, okay, just as that woman that touched the hem of his garment, unless these people reach out in faith to touch the hem of his garment when Jesus of Nazareth passes by, I tell you right now, they're going to be damned to hell. That's reality. That's the reality most people don't want to talk about, but I'm here to tell you today that this is what Jesus calls Christians to do. This right here is the way Christians are supposed to live their life. When we see a need, when we see people that have fallen into the devil's trap, we don't act as the fakes, but we run to their need. We don't sit around and ignore it and turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to them. We don't sit here and talk about them, but we go to them and we do everything we can. And if they want to stay in that state, then that'll be on them. But the blood will not be on our hands. And so this video today is just something that I was reading. Okay, this is the parable of the Good Samaritan. Okay, it's in children's books, all across America. It's a parable that's probably one of the more popular ones, but I want you to see how serious it is right here. I want you to see how real this is right here. It's very important that we understand these things today. Because one day it's going to be too late for these people, and it's going to be too late for us. We can't go back to earth and change anything that we've done. We can't fix anything in our past. If you blow it here on this earth now, then it'll be too late. You're going to have to look back in your life and see that you were stagnant, you were apathetic. You were like that certain priest, that certain Levite. You did nothing. You didn't answer the call. You didn't do what God called you to do. So I hope that this helps you out. I hope that this calls you out. I hope that this puts a spotlight on you that makes you look at your life. Take a look at yourself. What are you doing for God? Are you doing what God has called you to do? Are you happy with the way that you are right now? I hope that this just bring something to your attention here today. Hopefully God will use us to get someone's attention out there. And so this is just a short parable, a message here in the work truck today. Something I was reading the other night, wanted to share it with you guys. And I hope that this helps you out. I hope that this encourages you and moves you to get out there and get busy. Get in the fight and do something for God before it's too late. So we love all of you guys out there. We hope the best for you. And if you need anything, get in touch with us, and we'll try to help you out in any way we can. So God bless you all, and I'll see you in the next video.